So earlier we mentioned 94 East, Prince's, basically first band. Just Another Sucker was the first song that we put on our playlist. If you guys don't have our playlist, go check out our social media. It's on there. I'll post a link in our description as well for you. It's a Spotify playlist. You guys can check out all these songs if you want to listen to them. The next song we're going to talk about is Little Red Corvette, which is on the album 1999.
Yeah, I mean, 1999 was that was Prince's real big. That was his first. That album was his first big, huge mainstream hit. I mean,
Double
that.
album.
Mm-hmm.
Where did it chart? Let's see here, it charted at number 7. Yeah, so it sold a ton of records.
I mean, you figure if it charted at number 7 for a double album at that time period, that's a lot.
Oh yeah, it's quadruple platinum. It sold 4 million copies.
Mm-hmm.
It was that was his first platinum record, I believe. I think his previous 2 went gold. They're probably platinum now. I'm sure they're platinum by this point, but for years they were gold records. This was his first platinum upon release record. It probably debuted at 10 and went higher. I mean, Prince was kind of a big deal here. I mean, we were talking. I mean, you look at the singles on this record. I mean, obviously 1999, which the album is titled, was a huge hit. But I mean, Little Red Corvette was kind of his. I think that might have been his first number 1. Was it?
I would guess.
That's
sure.
the one song that I'm not crazy about.
I mean, it is what I mean. It is. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's a
good song. It's not his best.
You've heard it a million. You've heard it a million times.
Exactly.
My favorite song on that double album is "Lady Cab Driver." I mean, that's such a cool, just off the wall kind of odd song, and I like that one on there myself. And it's got a great just kind of casual beat and rhythm to it as well. I mean,
yeah, I think one of my favorites off that album is, I would have to say, a song called "Let's Pretend We're Married."
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's a great song.
It was a very rockabilly type of sound.
Yeah, definitely a unique sound. Yeah, no, there's a lot of, and that's the cool thing about a lot of his stuff. He had different sounds. He was unique, but he also had different sounds within his own sound. You know what I mean? You sit there and go, yeah, I hear his voice, but that sounds a little different than kind of the normal flow of his music to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And then going back to the sexuality aspect, the album closes up with International Lover. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great record. And like I was saying to you previously, I upon listening to more Prince as I got older, Prince's discography and order became more apparent to me. I always thought 1999 was later. I thought it was post Purple Rain, but it was pre Purple Rain.
He was working on Purple Rain as soon as he finished 1999.
Speaking of 1999, I mean that was clearly the biggest thing that came out of that album, right?
Well,
Little Red Corvette.
Little Red Corvette, yeah. I mean, those were both huge hits for him. Commercially.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys like 1999 better than Little Red Corvette?
I do.
As a song? Just song for a song? I agree with Wes. I like the 1999 better as a song.
It had more usage. I mean, we got to Y2K, and that's all we heard for a whole year.
A whole year.
I think everywhere you were had that song on that time. No
everywhere. While we were all preparing for the apocalypse.
And to keep with the sexual theme, everybody had their buttholes super tight at that time, worrying about what the hell was going to happen at midnight.
And then there was me. I didn't care at all. I was actually mad when nothing happened. I was like, what? Like, come on. Y2K, biggest letdown ever.
I was convinced nothing would happen.
Club. Oh, no. I thought it was going to be the end of Fight Club. I thought all financial institutions were going to burn to the ground and we were going to be like cannibals in the that movie The Road. Prince had been putting out a record every year. He had been putting out a new record every year. Purple Rain took longer because Purple Rain was this whole grand experiment. I'm gonna make a movie. Like, I'm not just gonna put out this amazing record that everybody's gonna love with my biggest hits. I'm gonna have an accompanying movie that is gonna kill at the box office. Like, you go, Prince.
Now, I know not all of you guys know the history, but Wes, is this where the picture of you looking like Prince came out? I'm guessing it was around
Look,
this
man,
era of Purple Rain. It had to be
I,
around this time.
I don't know what you're talking about. Stop believing the lies. But
I'm
yes,
gonna get my hand on
that
that
was a
photo at some time. I'm gonna get my hand on that photo, and if I can get it from one of your friends or family, it's gonna be in this
that was
episode.
that was the time. It was because I was a little older. I was like 14, and yeah, that was. I was always a big Prince fan anyway, but once Purple Rain came out, it was like, okay, I want to be Prince when I grow up.
I want to be a fireman. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be Prince. What's his grade school picture of like what he wants to be when he grows up, like crayons? It's him in a purple leisure suit.
That's right.
And high heel shoes and big platform shoes.
Amazing.
All right.
I love that.
Shirts.
What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be Prince. You want to be a prince? No, I don't want to be a prince. I want to be Prince.
That's right. He had all the women. I thought he was the coolest thing ever. His attitude, and like I said, the women he had, the women he dated. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't want to be a garbage man. I don't want to be a fireman. I want to be Prince. That was it.
But here's the thing I have to say about Prince. I mean, by the time Purple Rain comes out, it is feasible for him to do this project because he is a massive, huge global star. But he's still like he didn't move. He didn't build a huge studio out in Los Angeles. Paisley Park's in Minneapolis. He didn't film Purple Rain at the Whiskey. He filmed it at the First Avenue, which is the the cool music club in Minneapolis. Minneapolis had a really cool independent music scene in the '80s. A lot of your punk rock bands that me and Matt talked about on another podcast, like the Replacements and Husker Du, who both in their after Prince passed. Paul Westerberg from The Replacements wrote a beautiful eulogy about Prince. Bob Mould from Husker Du wrote this beautiful eulogy about Prince. Prince would go to their shows. Like, he was this massive star that could be, living anywhere. And what's he doing? He's going to First Avenue to see The Replacements play. And that's the coolest. And he decided to film his movie there. And I just think I think you got to give a big tip of the hat to Prince for being a guy who not only was this amazing musician, but he really appreciated music at its most fundamental level and was always supportive of up and coming artists.
Yeah, he wasn't a conformist. Yeah. He did his own thing.
Yeah, I always heard he was a huge fan of No Doubt. He would always attend their shows. He was a huge fan. So yeah, I mean, he appreciated music in general, and he definitely appreciated true artists and true musicians.
Yeah. And I mean, and for these local Minneapolis acts, he opened up Paisley Park to go record demos and sessions there. Like, there's a ton of bands that the Paisley Park sessions. And I mean, how cool is that? Like, you're sitting there laying down guitar tracks, and Prince as it comes by to ask you how everything's going.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it, like when we talked to Lil Maceo for the other show. If you guys check that out, he mentioned that when his band would play there, Prince was like the audio engineer. Like he wasn't sitting there like playing or anything. He was like making sure everything was sounding good. Doing all like the extra hard work that a lot of people don't want to do. And I'd imagine he was probably doing all that stuff for them too. Like audio engineering all the recordings.
Hands-on guy.
And just like I mean, somebody who like genuinely just lived and died music. Like that was his thing. Like, yeah, I mean, Purple Rain, sure, it was this huge blockbuster and the album sold 1 billion copies, but for Prince it was way more about the art. Like he had this concept for Purple Rain, and I mean, it's something we're still talking about today and we'll be talking about long after we're gone.
Yeah, I have fond memories of seeing Purple Rain in the movie theater. Like I saw that movie 47 times, like paid 47 every weekend. I would go to the movies, see Purple Rain, and I'd sit through multiple shows. I'd go to the first show and stay for like 2 or 3 shows, but because it stayed in a local movie theater forever, and I was there every weekend.
Well, you kept it there. You were like, this guy just keeps showing up, so it's guaranteed sale every week.
It's like, who's this kid that just keeps showing up every week?
They just had the envelope with Wes's name on it. They just handed it to him when he
ticket.
There you go, ticket. Oh, you again?
No, when I was in college at the time, and as a DJ, I had tons and tons of vinyl, and I just remember playing. Like I would always listen to different stuff all the time because I had a lot of different things. I remember playing that album a lot, and I was like, and I actually remember renting the movie, and I had my DJ speakers hooked up to our apartment up at college, and I put the movie on and ran the music through my system so I can hear everything, in a nice stereo sound. I remember watching it there up at college, and it was kind of a cool thing. I mean, I remember the system, the speakers, and everything else. So, and I remember the bad acting, absolutely, to some degree as well. But like John said, I mean, just cool. He's like, hey, I'm just going to throw a movie out there too with this awesome soundtrack. I mean, and the soundtrack is just ridiculous. Every song on there was unique and stood out individually on its own. So,
but
is What's So Crazy the best album opener? It's got to be up there, right?
It's up there.
I know it's like very mainstream, but it's my favorite Prince song. That song is so good.
Really?
It's so good.
It's such a great song. It's such a great song.
Even
it's such a great song. That guitar is just the best. I mean,
phenomenal.
I mean, just the opening monologue. We are gathered here today for this thing called life. Like that is some powerful shit, man. That's powerful.
For sure.
And yeah. I have a I mean, we were talking about like how you watched Purple Rain for the first time. If you remember when you were a kid and VHS was like the big thing, you had like 1 million VHSs that had like 3 movies on them because your parents would just put multiple things on there.
Yeah.
So I had one that for whatever reason, this is the most random one ever. It was Purple Rain, the California Raisins Christmas special, and the Lost Boys. So every time I wanted to watch the Lost Boys, I had to fast forward through Purple Rain and the California Raisins. And then when I got older, like I got to be about like 10 or 11, I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch Purple Rain. And it was cool. And I'm like, all right, this music's awesome. Like this is it.
How dare you skip the California Raisins?
Are you kidding? I still watch that. I still watch that at Christmas time.
Well, ironically enough, Morris Day was recently at Mercer County Park here in New Jersey, maybe like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, "Wow, that's pretty amazing, Morris Day." And I don't know if it was Morris Day with the Time or some people from the Time, but it was pretty interesting to see that.
That's awesome.
It's cool.
Yeah. But yeah,
we're talking about the Purple Rain album, but the first single, When Doves Cry, When I heard it on the radio, I lost my mind
Oh,
because it
that's
was
one of those
the
songs.
the first time you didn't hear any bass. He there was no bass tracks on that song whatsoever, which was totally unheard of at that time.
Oh, let's be real. Like we keep is a common theme is that that Prince transcends genres. But Prince was always in the funk R&B um,
Mhm.
family,
Realm.
and to not
Mhm.
have bass is like that.
Unheard
Like
of, yeah.
that's unheard of. That is completely unheard of. And that's one of those songs. If I had heard it for the first time on the radio, that would have been one of those. What did I just hear? I can't leave my. Because remember, this is before Shazam or being able to just Google
Yep.
lyrics to find out
Yep.
what a song is. That would be a. I have to wait for the DJ to tell me what I just heard moment.
And then also on that album, I remember hearing Darling Nikki on the album.
Oh,
And
Darling Nikki, we're going
yeah,
Darling Nikki.
we got
All
to go, Darling
right.
Nikki. We got to talk. So I remember hearing it, and I was like, okay, yeah, and obviously in the movies, writhing around on the stage, trying to make a point in the movie, and at the end of the song, as you all know, you just hear like, you just hear
Mhm.
like a bunch of stuff, and I go, what the hell is that? And having a direct drive turntable, I'm like, this sounds like something backwards. So of course I sat there, spun it backwards, and basically, it says, hello, how are you? I'm fine. There's like a whole little speech from him, kind of like an intro, which was kind of cool. And I remember, friends of mine come over and I'd go, you got to check this out. Because back then that was kind of like a cool thing. And it was like, and I'd play it backwards and go, oh, wow, is that on the album? I'm like, yeah, it's on the album. So kind of a cool, unique thing at that time.
As great of a song Darling Nikki was, it was one of those songs that definitely pushed the buttons and started the whole rating thing on
Oh,
CDs.
people lost their minds over this song. That's why I was like,
Yeah.
oh, we're talking about Darling Nikki. People lost their minds over this song.
But you have the stuff that's on Dirty Minds where he talks about head, he talks about incest. No one paid attention to that, but Darling Nikki comes out,
Not
and all of
a
a sudden it's a big
no.
thing.
I mean, when that was when you're talking about Dirty Mind, that's when he's up and coming Prince. Now he's
Here's the
global
difference. Yeah, now
superstar
Yeah.
he's
Prince.
a big
Yeah,
star,
people are hearing this. Like,
exactly.
I mean, we talked about 1999 selling 4 million records. How many
Mhm.
copies of Purple Rain were sold? Let's take a look here.
20,
I'm gonna
30.
Oh, easy.
yeah, 13 in America.
Okay.
13 in
Well, it
America.
had to be what,
Worldwide,
25, 30, 30
worldwide,
worldwide.
worldwide, it sold 25 million copies.
Yeah, there you go. I
Yeah,
mean,
this
that
is
makes
another.
sense.
That's another level. That's another level. That
Right.
once
He
you
was
once
more
you once
mainstream
you
too at that
once
point.
you once you're in 10 million copies mode, you get a lot of attention from the family focus groups. And
Very well said.
those family focus groups,
Yeah,
they really like to put a target on Prince's back. It's ridiculous. Like I said,
that was crazy.
like I said, we definitely took a step backwards culturally, and that was a thing, man. That was a thing. It's like we embrace in the 80s, we embraced prudism. It was like a thing. Let's smash these copies of this record. They promote this. Anything that was considered to be dangerous towards the kids. Guess what? Kids are going to be okay. Kids are going to be okay.
My It's like I listened to Prince. My mom never cared until they made a big deal about Darling Nikki. And then my mom was like, "Wait, what are you listening to?"
Look, it was the same. Not to bring up video games all the time. It was the same thing when Mortal Kombat came out. My parents didn't give a shit about any video game I ever played, and then there was that whole controversy about Mortal Kombat. Like, oh, you
Yep.
can't have it. I mean, I still got it. It took me a little longer, but it was like, you have no idea what's happening. Just don't worry about it. It's fine. Everything's fine. You rip a heart out of a chest, head off with a
Yep.
spine.
Yep.
I know it's not
Exactly.
real. It's a video.
Exactly how it was, man. Exactly how it was. Yeah. So after Purple Rain, we had Prince's Sergeant Pepper of his career with Around the World in a Day, and then even though it was very different from what Purple Rain was, he changed again when we got Parade, which gave us Kiss, but Around the World in a Day gave us Raspberry Beret.
And Around the World in a Day, and we talked about this in the Lil Maceo interview, that was just not even out of left field. That was out of the parking lot. Like if you were a Prince fan and heard that album, it was nothing. Nothing. I mean,
Nothing.
Wes agree? It was nothing.
Nothing.
John, nothing. Like it was so far off track, and a lot of the Prince fans were like, what the hell is this? Like scratching their head and trying to figure out. And it obviously didn't do as well. I mean, obviously it followed a phenomenal album, but it really took a while to gain even like a hit. Like Raspberry Beret wasn't, just jump after somebody. Usually somebody has a mega album, people buy the next album, and even if they don't love it, they kind of like it enough. This didn't have that same vibe right out the gate, for sure.
It took me a minute. I remember showing up at Sam Goody the day it was coming out. Couldn't wait to get it. I thought I was going to get another 1999 or another Purple Rain,
Of course.
and I got that. And it didn't hit right away. It had to grow on me. It definitely had to grow on me. I mean, I like the CD. I like the album. I think it's great. It was a definitely different departure from what I was used to, but it didn't hit me right away.
But it is funny though that you bring up the fact that it did have a fallout a bit with the fans. When you take into consideration that, what did we say? Purple Rain sold 17 million copies in America. Yeah, that one sold 2. Which 2 million double platinum is a huge deal, but that is just
But it sold 2 million.
speaking on that's just on the star power of Prince. That is just he sold 2 million copies with the name on the cover of the record.
It sold 2 million on that alone, probably because of how phenomenal the last 2 albums were. Absolutely.
Yeah, like name at that point it's star power. Like that's what it is.
For sure.
Because it was only a year between Purple Rain and Around the World in a Day. So it was like, okay, you were expecting leftover Purple Rain. And it was, like I said, to this day, that's, to me, that was his Sergeant Pepper era right there.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's funny. My friend Jesse will tell you it's the best Prince record. He'll swear by it.
And you're still friends with him, right? You're still friends with him?
He's a contrarian. He's a contrarian.
It's all good. Listen.
This is one Prince album I listened to the whole thing on, and it was certainly weird. Certainly weird listening to that whole album after Prince and after 1999 and Purple Rain. It was certainly different. But I didn't think it was bad. It's kind of like Wes is saying. That was pretty good. Plus, look, Raspberry Beret is a great song. Like, I really, really do enjoy that song quite a bit.
Yeah, and it's a song that was meant to. I mean, that song was meant to be a radio hit. Like,
for sure.
Yeah, definitely singy, songy kind of tune for sure.
So we're all like music guys, and I'm sure we're all Beatles fans. So, what was your first reaction when you heard Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? It was different. It was really different from what we were used to prior.
Well, that's kind of the Beatles I grew up on. I had that was like my parents. That was the Beatles that my Revolver and On is kind of like what my parents brought me up on. It was later when I got into the the what I consider to be like my Beatles. I want to hear the pop songs. I want to hold your hand. But my parents' Beatles was kind of Revolver, Rubber Soul, Sergeant Pepper's, Abbey Road, the later stuff. That's what I grew up on. So it wasn't a crazy
Transition.
departure. Now with that said, when I heard the White Album for the first time, that was even for me like, whoa, this is kind of cool. It sounds like a radio station to just keep switching channels because every song sounds like a different sounds like a completely different band, and I totally dig that. But that's now I'm going off topic here. But we brought up the Beatles, so I had to chime in.
And then we go from that to Parade, which gave us Kiss, which interestingly was the second song he did with no bass line.
Well, it worked for him the first time.
And it worked again.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
It worked again.
It worked again. It was like, oh, I tried that crazy thing and it worked, so why not?
Well, he was never afraid to, go off into a different, take a different path, which, there's definitely musicians that are but he, he'd be like, this is what I want to do. Like, he was about him doing his own thing, which in and of itself was important.
He was not about the formula and
absolutely
and I think formulatic thinking, or if that's the word I'm looking for, is kind of the I think it kills kind of all art. Like
it's definitely the downfall of some artists for sure.
Like that annoys me. As Matt knows, we did an episode. I'm a massive Beach Boys fan, and when the Beach Boys did all their really good, creative, awesome stuff, Mike loves fighting hit tooth and nail. No, we have to stick to the formula. And that's why they're out making money at casinos now in front of boring, lame crowds, because it's just like, we're just going to stick to the formula. Prince was never about the formula. Formula kills art, and Prince is an artist. And if you want to go back to doing something that you did before that worked, it should be because you're inspired to, you're feeling it that day. It shouldn't be because you're feeling pressure to make a hit record. Because then it's just not. Because then it might sell some copies, but it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't, So Prince constantly wanted to evolve, and that's why he's the best.
And then he did it again in '87 with Sign of the Times.
Yeah, Sign of the Times is my favorite Prince record. That
really?
to me is that to me is, and I do think it's kind of it almost kind of fits as, like, I shouldn't say a bookend of 80s Prince, but it is kind of like the bookend of that run of records he had there.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like his opus.